Hello everybody, I'm Heather Niaz-Olmsted, instructional designer, collaborative partner with UMA, and this is
Lonnie Netto, Assistant Director of Distance Ed here at UMK. We've come together to go over an exciting feature that came about in, I don't know if it was when we moved to our cloud-based version of Blackboard, but the Retention Center has been in Blackboard for probably about a year now, and I don't think a lot of people are aware that it's there and what its capabilities are. So we're going to discuss that a little bit today, and that will lead into another tool that we use here on the UMFK campus that helps with student tracking and retention.
I know a lot of times when we throw tools at you, a lot of people get kind of overwhelmed with the, oh my gosh, it's another tool that I have to learn how to use. But the purpose of this tool, the reason I think Blackboard probably developed it and why we're advocating for it is because we really feel like it'll allow you to kind of save time in some of your course processes and in your grading and keeping track of especially students that are falling behind. So try to keep that in the back of your mind. You know, where will this tool be able to help me save time as opposed to, you know, how am I going to wrap my brain around learning this new tool? So we have a basic kind of course shell here that what we've done is Lonnie and I are instructors in this course, and we also have added several people, names that you'll probably see as familiar as students, and so that way we can kind of show you what it looks like from the student view and from the faculty view as well, so you can kind of just see what that looks like. So I'm just going to really quickly go over to my Chrome browser so we can see. So here's the student view. You can see that I have some weekly activities here. I have some journal assignments. I have some discussions. And of course I have my grades that students can always check. You can see I didn't do very well on this grade right here. I only got a 65 out of 100, so I really need to beef up my studying on that one. But the great thing is when I go over to the Retention Center, which is held underneath in the course management panel, and it's under the evaluation tab. When you click that open, you can see that the Retention Center is the third option available. Has anybody used Retention Center yet? Okay. Maybe we'll talk about your experiences a little bit later after the demo too. I'd love to hear about your experiences. So when we click in the Retention Center here, we get some pretty immediate information. We can see that it lists 3 students as currently at risk right now in my class. And then it lists out which students are actually at risk. So Leslie, Lonnie, and Logan currently are at risk for missed deadlines and access alert. Now, when you go into any Retention Center, and every Blackboard class has it, you're going to automatically see these 4 headings. One is missed deadlines, one is grades alert, one is activity alert, and another is access alert. So those are just kind of the out of the box, and they set parameters automatically from Blackboard, but you do have the ability to customize those. And I know through working with a cohort that's working with Retention Center here at UMFK that's been tweaked a little bit, and there's some kind of standards that are being developed that kind of work best for how we work with students here. And we're going to get into that a little bit too. So if you go into your, if you want to customize your parameters here, how you do that is you go to the top right in the Retention Center header, and you can click Customize. And here you can see that it says yes, all of these are actually included in the Retention Center, and you can choose actually to not include one or more of them as well. And to edit any kind of rule, you simply click the little caret contextual menu and click Edit, and that'll edit the options. So right now the default activity for students being active in the class, it is included in the risk table we can see. And the criteria that Blackboard automatically out of the box dictates is it'll count at risk for user activity in the last 1 week is 20% below average. So you can change that parameter if you want. And with the default activity, was that one of the ones that,
That was one of the ones we were going to remove when we get there.
okay. So, since at UMFK we've decided, you know what, this information isn't necessarily as good for what we want to track with students, if you want to take that out, you can just simply click Included in Risk Table, No. And then when you click Submit, let's go back to our retention center view. You can see that right here it's just kind of blank, and it's not going to collect that data for you. But if you want to reinstate it, you can just click the Use Defaults there to quickly reinstate it, if you decide that you do want to track that information. And so one of the things that we wanted to look at specifically for grades, was customizing. Let's go into the grade rule. We're going to edit.
So currently it's listed as when the grade hits below the average of the 25%. I think what we agreed upon as an institution to try to get people on board to start tracking is, instead of use average grades, to hit set grade value and to change that point to 78. So that's C, right? And we do have a lot of nursing classes, and anything below a C in a nursing class is a failing grade, not just a C. It's not acceptable. So we are going to default that to 78. That's the criteria change we have in that column.
And so I just click to be below that 78. So that way it'll ding you when people fall below that. And when I click Submit, you can see that success, it's been updated now. So now any students that submit any work that get, that 65 now should trigger, that retention center alert. And let's hope that it does. So see, now that's actually updated, because before I didn't have any grade alerts, and now you can see that I do. And there are a couple ways that you can interact with that and check on that with students. One of the ways you can do that is click on that button, and it can tell you, oh, the student has this item here that is below your parameter for grade. Or you can also click into the student name itself, and you can get a richer body of information. And here you can see that although the student hasn't had any missed deadlines, the grade is below 78 points. And we can also see the activity alert and access alert as well, so you can see when I last accessed. And likewise, if there's another student that you're looking for activity on, you'll get a big black box if the student has never ever accessed the Blackboard course, which is something that I know, especially in the beginning of the semester, we always kind of look to see, okay, where are students, especially in online classes, are they touching base? Again, we can see this in Grade Center, but this just kind of gives a really great option, because some other things you can do from the retention center, and this is where the time saving comes in, is you can choose to monitor. So if I wanted to monitor Leslie right now, because I see that she's never accessed, she has missed deadlines, maybe anything that she had turned on theoretically, maybe, under my parameter, she's at risk of failing. I could click this little star here to monitor her. And then when I go to the general retention center, I can kind of get that automatic information from her on the sidebar right here. And you probably don't need to monitor all of your students. It's really to target the at-risk students that you know are at risk of not doing well in your class. So you can just easily access them without having to scroll down through the Grade Center columns. And another really cool thing is when you're in the student themselves, you can actually message them straight from the retention center. So how you do that is you can click on Notify Student, and you can see right here that it's going just to Leslie. You can have blind copy for additional recipients if there's a teacher aide, or say there's a course steward or somebody that's also in the class trying to help with students. And Blackboard will automatically give you kind of a canned response when you send out these announcements, but you don't have to use that. It says that your activity and performance levels have triggered this response, but I can target it and say, whatever you want, I'm concerned about your attendance. Oops.
So to date, I have kept the canned response and then added my own text underneath to elaborate.
So the other thing that you'll notice is the subject area will actually show the course title and then course performance alert, but you can also edit that to say whatever you want it to, if you choose to.
So additional recipients, some ideas right there might be, you might, if you know who their advisor is, you might put their advisor there. Christine Minamaker, Oniki Samuels, who both work in the Student Success Office. Those would be two people definitely that you could BCC so that they're getting that information too, but we'll elaborate a little further, another tool we use to do that as well.
Or if you're working with a particular student too, or a student tutor, a peer tutor, or any kind of person that's tutoring the student that happens to be, have access to the assignments that can help the student. You can also attach a file if you need to. If you have like a performance rubric and it's an assignment that just wasn't meeting the cut, you can attach that with the attachments. And when I click submit now, when I scroll down, I can actually see it gives me a threaded list of the discussions and the times that I've reached out to the student. And that becomes really, really useful if you have kind of continued struggles with a particular student where you have to have a lot of touch bases to not have to go through your email and try to sort out all that, because it can just thread them all together right here in the Blackboard. So I find that to be a huge time saver myself with my classes.
One thing, if you can go back one more screen, that Heather and I, when we were starting to utilize the tool, so where was it? It said that we could email them through here, and that was broken. We noticed that.
Yes. Was it? That's a good question. Where was that?
I don't know. We saw there wasn't, unless they removed it because they realized it was broken. But at one point on this screen, you could notify the students from this screen, and when you hit notify, it didn't work. You had to go in, you had to click on the student's name and go in the screen you were just in to actually notify them.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that was actually.
Is it maybe a student you're monitoring and their email shows up? That's what I was telling them, not monitoring anyone, but let's see.
So a good tip, a rule of thumb, this is only going to work as well as your course is set up. If it's an open-ended course, because we do have some open-ended courses where students are allowed to work at their own pace and there aren't hard deadlines, you are not going to be successful being able to use this tool. This tool is really reliant on you setting deadlines and expectations for your student. And we always suggest that if you do have a class that you allow students to kind of get ahead and work at their own pace, not best practice, but it does happen, that you at least have what we call stop gaps. So a stopgap is a suggested deadline that Unit 1 should be completed by this date. So it's not so hard of a deadline that it needs to be done that week, but within a certain amount of time. That's the only way your retention center is going to be useful to yourself and to your students.
Another pretty cool tool, since this gives us several opportunities to kind of interact and engage our students, is if I have a fully online class and discussion board and keeping up with what other students are discussing is a big part of that class, and so I know that students really have to have those access points and that activity in order to be okay with the class. If I see a lot of those pings going off in that type of class, I can actually post an announcement straight from this retention center instead of clicking out, scrolling up and clicking out into announcements. Just by clicking here and saying, don't forget to check your course often, etc., etc. And I can post it straight from here to students. And it gives me all the same parameters as the regular announcements button. So that's pretty handy to be able to just zip that straight out. The students in the class that are in this room, Lonnie and Logan, you're going to be getting all kinds of pings from me, so apologies. So that's actually, and here it is actually listed in the announcements as well. So that's just kind of a cool, it's kind of like a shortcut that I've had really good luck with. Now if you had assessments, things pending that had to be graded, I've actually graded everything in this class because I wanted to be able to, show the stuff that I knew that I had graded the difference between, the grade parameters. But if there was grading due, that would show up in that assessment box right here too, and you could click straight to your pending assessments from there. Right in this assessment section in this bottom corner. Is there any questions about this particular tool before we kind of move into how some of this information can be useful as well for early reporting?
We have some adopters in the room, so that's good. So I'm sure you've had time to interact with it. I just want to hover over the name. I think maybe it's when you clicked on them here. No, there was an email option.
There was.
And
I wonder if it did go away.
yeah, hopefully they worked it out because it wasn't working. So I'm glad to see it gone. But there was an option to email in this screen.
I thought it was somewhere maybe
Here.
on the individual
Yeah.
students.
I think you're right, and it's gone. So you do actually have to click on the person to be able to hit
Right.
and notify them.
Yeah, I think I do remember seeing that, and I have learned already something. I had an assignment that was not actually graded,
Mhm.
but I did not know that I could click it to make it not visible there, because it looks like I had never graded that. When I
Right,
go in there, it looks like,
right. So
you've
you,
not graded this.
so yeah, so you see it in the
Yes, I know
retention.
how to do that now, so I
Yes,
learned that today.
right in this area here. Yep.
Right.
Thank you, yes.
Yeah. Did you want to elaborate, or can I go to just a few points?
Oh yeah, we can go through a few points as
Okay.
well.
So a few other things I just wanted to touch base on and point out. This retention center is really nice. I know for some it's going to be a lot to look at. This retention center, to me, if you have a larger course, if you have a lot of students, they're not as easy to keep track of. The retention center is beautiful. We do have a lot of adopters who have always used in this evaluation area this performance dashboard. I use it on a regular basis. Sometimes you have some of this information embedded in your full grade center where you're seeing their last access date, where you're seeing some of this information. If you have a small class, it might be easy to know which students are performing a little, they're at risk compared to others. This is another tool that we suggest that you use. It will give you a timestamp down to the second the last time that person got in class. So we point people to this a lot. So this is something that you can also utilize as a tool. But the retention center really gives you everything. And the beautiful part is you can individually monitor those students and you can notify them, and it's keeping that track record. Unless you copy in people in that blind carbon copy area, when you send those alerts through the retention center, it's only a discussion between you and the student. Students don't always read email. We know this. They've kind of become desensitized at some point to reading emails, because we've probably tried to touch base via email at some point if we were really concerned with their performance in our class. This is a tool. Another tool that we utilize here at UMFK can be found here in the portal under academic resources. Under this tab, if you're logged into the portal, the second option from the bottom is called an early alert referral form. This is a referral form that will send a referral to the advisor. It will send it to Christine Nenemaker. It will send it to the student, and it will copy you. You'll get a copy back to your email. But this is our campus's way of this is our early alert system. This is our way of monitoring and tracking and student success, that office being able to know that your students are at risk and reaching out to try to intervene. So while this is great, it is a tool, it is a resource. If you're really concerned and you think there needs to be a referral made at any point, it could be the second week of class and they haven't logged in, that could justify an early alert. It's never too soon or too late to send early alerts. We encourage people to do it at any time throughout the semester. Waiting for a mid-semester grade to post is sometimes too late for a student. So please, if you're concerned and you're monitoring your students and there's not an improvement in their, course performance, go back to the portal, the UMFK portal, academic resources, and click on this academic reports early alert referral form. You won't find that unless you're logged into the campus portal.
And are those ever going to be linked?
So right now, this is a homegrown UMFK tool. It's not linked. It's not, whenever we put something that's, we have a building block for and it's integrated with Blackboard, we agree on those things as a system. And right now, that early alert form is a UMFK tool. So unfortunately, right now, they're not linked. In the future, enrollment management might have those conversations and we might come up with a common tool for early alerts, something that's integrated with our LMS. But for right now, they stand alone. Good question though.
Well, and I think the academic reports, they changed there because they're trying to actually move away from early alerts. Everybody knows it is that, but the fact that you can't send it after midterm, because at one point we were told, everything needs to be done before October if you're going to report. And after that, we don't care.
Right,
Basically,
right.
so.
And now very much the message we're trying to get out to faculty is it's never too early, it's never too late to send those alerts. That's how the Student Success Office knows that there's an issue and starts that early intervention.
Absolutely, because I've run into students who've done fine, but
And then they
something
fall off the
happens.
radar.
Yes, exactly,
Yes,
and
yeah.
that can, that's why I say I will not predict a grade because you never know.
Yeah. So I guess if you do blind carbon copy using the retention center and you decide to copy in a advisor, a trio person who might be assisting for tutoring or other reasons that you are already aware of, you still should be following up with that early alert form because that's our process, that's our tracking on our campus.
And it's positive too, so if you have a student who has had a problem, you can also report later saying that they've, seem to be doing
Better,
average or better work,
significantly
yes.
better. Yep, yep, for sure.
That's a good point, that their alerts do not have to always be negative.
Be negative,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've seen some people use the students that were performing really well in a class to refer them back to TRIO, and they started doing tutoring in certain classes. So it can very much be used as a positive.
Oh, as a tutor referral.
Yeah.
I've seen people use it for like the honors program referral of the student should talk to the honors advisor.
So those were my plugs. Heather, did you want to elaborate anything more on the retention center?
Well, do we want to go through, since we're talking about setting the different parameters in these three kind of major areas, do we want to talk about what our best practice that we found with our cohort is right now? We just did the
You can.
grade.
We changed the 78%. We did the
Okay.
grade. We removed one tool that I think, deemed to be not so beneficial. So we removed that tool.
We can even actually delete this if we want to.
Lonnie, since I've come in late, do the instructors set the criteria for success? Or
Yes.
how is that done?
So there are 4 common criteria already pre-built in. So at the bare minimum, we're asking faculty to at least use what's already pre-built for them.
Right.
Leslie and Jason have done some work together and tracked and realized that one of those criteria is not so useful as the rest. So we've showed the faculty how to remove that one criteria. And then there was one that was set to, if they're performing less than 20% of their peers, percentage-wise, we've actually changed that to a grade value. And so we've set the criteria there as 78%, which is a C, and for our nursing students, the cutoff. So we're trying to get the faculty here at Fort Kent to at least use that criteria. We think that gives them a better, they saw the example where it was set to 20% and it wasn't flagging Heather.
And it used this right here.
Mhm.
So what we
It was
did was we
using
clicked
grade
set,
average. Yeah.
setting the grade
Yeah.
value.
So in other words, nursing could go in and let's say set it at 80, if they
Yes.
felt that
Yep.
was the beginning of slippery slope.
They can. We're trying to get everybody to at least use
And you can also
78.
use
C+,
percentages.
Yeah, to C+, yeah. So those are the 2 changes that we've made to what's already there pre-built for them.
Okay.
We don't want it to be too cumbersome for faculty. At some point, if they decide they want to create their own rules specific to their program or their course, they can definitely do that. And Heather very briefly went through and showed them where they can start customizing and creating those extra
Okay, so
criteria.
in
Yep, and I'll
department,
offer
could
another
anybody
one
go
too.
ahead and create a higher cutoff point
Definitely.
for
Yeah.
notification
Yeah, definitely.
purposes?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And so say you want your students to access the course every day, every other day or every 3 days. Right now, the course access that we see is included is every 5 days. That's just the out of the box for Blackboard. If you have, a stricter policy where you want students in there every 3 days to take weekends into account, or maybe every day, you can set that right here.
Okay.
So we
Whatever
have some courses where they require them to do their first initial discussion post by a certain day in the week.
Right.
And then they have to do their replies at another specific point in the week. They don't have the 7 days like some other classes might allow them the full 7 days. And that's because they want students to be in there, that they want them to be interacting with the students. The students don't have to go back 7 days later and try to read the replies, because you have some who are going to be proactive and get the work done very promptly, and you have some who are going to wait. And it's not fair to the ones who are proactive. So some people set their discussion parameter that way, so in that case, you'd want them logging in maybe every 3 days and alerting you if they're not, because they're not doing what you've asked them to do.
Yeah, and so people will stagger the release of materials to be every few days too, so they really require that every few day access to make sure that they're, in there looking at new content as it's released.
Yeah, we try to be very regular with, the week begins for me 12 noon Mondays, it ends at midnight Sundays. And then I ask that like the first, you need to have some activity by Friday at the latest, because again, I have a lot of nurses, I teach a lot of the RN and BSN students, and some of them can only post on the weekends, and at least a lot of their reading and posting. So that gives them a chance to have interaction over the weekend, rather than when I didn't have a solid deadline, everybody posted at 11:30 to 12 o'clock on Sunday nights.
Right,
and
right.
So,
And if there's any technical glitch, if
Yeah.
Blackboard is down for maintenance, if life gets in the way, we want them actively going in there, pacing,
Right.
not trying to cram in all your assignments. If you have 2 things, 3 things due that week, trying to do it in a 1 hour period, so that way it's quality work, right? And that way, if they don't quite understand something, they have time to communicate that with you and get back feedback. So yeah, changing the parameters of that, but bare minimum what we're asking UMFK faculty is to at least try to use the criteria that's pre-built in there, and if you can, manipulate it to at least that 78. If you want it to be less or more, that's your discretion, but at least we're utilizing it. And like you saw with the 20%, that's standard for that one pre-built,
Which is the activity alert.
the activity alert. Heather had us, 66 or 64? And it didn't flag her. That's not a great grade. It should have flagged
It's
her.
because I was more active than everybody else that haven't actually accessed the course yet.
Yeah. So when we changed that parameter to 78 points, it brought her up right away.
Yep.
She was lit up red that she had poor performance on that particular assessment or assignment.
And is there anything within here which notifies the student?
Yep. We went through that just
Okay,
a while ago.
then I'll discuss offline with
Okay.
you on that, but, okay.
When you're monitoring a student too, say in the first couple of weeks, maybe you have a student that maybe, is falling off the radar, you're trying to keep up with them, you've starred them in their little profile, they're here on your sidebar, you're watching them, and then they catch up, they're doing okay, they've caught their stride. You can actually stop monitoring a student at any time too. And just have that panel really focus on the students that really are at risk. So that way it doesn't just create kind of visual clutter.
So if they improve, do they come off your monitoring screen?
Yes.
She toggled them off, and then they're still gonna. You mean this long list of students?
And what I'm wondering is if their grade improves up to, let's say 78%.
Oh, yes. Yeah, so once I bring my grade up to, say, an 85, then my line here will disappear.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Was there some kind of, I'm sorry, this is just like a creative thing, but normally a star is for good. So I was wondering, why is it not like a red flag?
I don't know.
That just popped
That's
in my
fine.
mind.
I don't know. That's just how the
Yeah.
tool is
Oh,
built.
yeah, I'm not sure either.
That's
So-
the wonks at Blackboard.
The third piece, Christine's here, and she can answer questions about this if you have specific ones. So when we talk about student success, enrollment management, retention, all these types of things, we just looked at the retention center on Blackboard. We looked at the early alert referral form that's available to you through the portal. There is another piece that not a lot of people are aware of, but we pay into here at UMFK. And the other piece, let me see if I can find it, is also in that academic resource tab, and it is the Student Success Collaborative. I'm not going to click on it right now because I do have student information in it, But at some point, we might have a subsequent training just on that, because we had a training early on. Some of you might remember it as referred to EAB. This is a component of EAB, and it's actually it's like a predictive modeling of your students. So you can take your advisees, this works with your advisees, you can take anybody you're advising, you can upload their names into this program, and it will track those advisees. It will take any criteria it already has pre-existing in Main Street, such as GPA, if they took SATs, it will take all of that information and current grades that they have, and it will do some predictive modeling so you know if your students are at risk. It will also give you some information that if they are at risk and they might have to, you might have to have the conversation with them of, is this the right major for you? It gives you some options that might be suggestions for your students of majors that we have that might better fit with your student. You can actually monitor your students, your advisees that way. You can also email them that way. So that's a third component not a lot of people are familiar with. This works with your advisees. That plays into student success and retention.
Another thing I want to say too, since we were just kind of talking about, it just occurred to me, the starred students that are on the side here. Students, unless you like send out the email or an announcement to students, they aren't going to necessarily know that you're monitoring them. That's only for your eyes as the instructor, or if you have a teacher's assistant, they'll be able to see that as well. But they won't know that they're at risk, and they'll only know the information you give them, if you email and concerned about, your performance or your attendance. They'll only know the information that you give them personally.
Yeah.
And so Heather mentioned we have a cohort we're trying to pilot this with. We're working with Leslie, we're working with Jason on enrollment management, and we're keeping track of certain classes. We had some early adopters, I believe Joe is one of them, and we're monitoring some courses and seeing how this tool works and how we can use it for student success and retention purposes. If you have not already, adopted or been approached to be part of this cohort, and if you're interested, please contact myself or Leslie, and we'll get you in touch with the appropriate people to get you part of the pilot cohort.
I've been trying. I knew that because I told her a while back that I was, willing to be part of it. I haven't tampered around much because I didn't know what they were doing behind the scenes.
Yeah, I've been using it with my Fort Kent class, which is an on-campus class, but I use Blackboard very heavily. And I'm teaching a class at UMPI this semester that's fully online, and I've been using it with that class as well, with really good success. I don't know if it's because of the canned response that you just saw that it gave the student. There was some urgency in that heading that my UMPI students immediately hit me back. They weren't replying to my just Lonnie@maine.edu email when I was saying, hey, I noticed you haven't logged in, how are you doing? Can we touch base? I wasn't getting a response, but when I use the early alert, I don't know if it's the way it tags it, and it's like there's some sense of urgency there.
You are in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
They got back to me, and we had the conversation. So
Yeah.
Well, it does look awfully official.
It does.
When
It
you
looks,
look at it.
and your
Yeah.
activity performance levels have triggered.
Yeah.
There's some
Yeah.
component there that is kind of alarming. We don't want to scare students, but we want them to know that we're concerned, we want to be involved, we're here for their success. And so for me, for my UMPI class, for sure, when I used it, they hit it. It was within, if not within minutes, it was within that day, which was really good. Because
Yeah.
like I said,
You could email. I mean, I had seen the other previous email and tried to use it, but it didn't work. I didn't know you could do it this way, so now.
yes, so somebody caught on, because you've seen it too. There was another area that was not working correctly where it had an envelope, it had an email icon, but it wouldn't let you notify the student. So I always had to come into the screen that Heather's in now to notify.
And another thing too that's on the side, so I'm clicked right now into Lonnie as student. If I just wanted to add a personal note to say, I emailed from maine.edu account, I can save that note, and that'll stack with the messages I've sent to the student, but the student won't get the notes. Those notes are just for my own information. So as those start, building up, as I'm emailing her throughout the semester and adding notes, I can have a really great threaded kind of history of, the reach outs and the engagement that I've had with the student, which is pretty helpful, especially for at-risk students.
It's documentation of all the intervention, right? Everything
Okay.
we've tried to reach the student. So-
Well, and then, there's so many things, because I get the inevitable emails, I'm always asking, put your course and the section number, because I
because we
have
teach so
huge
many.
numbers, yes,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then the student says, "What? I don't understand what's going on in class," and they give me a first name,
Mm-hmm.
and that's all I've got, and it's not a
You may have like
main
5
email.
letters.
Yeah,
Right.
so I'm like, "What?"
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It helps me to, because and sometimes I just have to write, you'll have to tell me who you are and what class you're in.
Yeah.
I have no idea. And, over time, yes, I get to know this person, but I have one student who's taking 2 classes, and taking my lit course and taking a comp course. So, which one, it's very important. I need to know which one you're talking
It
about.
is.
So.
Is there any questions or anything, any buttons that people saw that you have questions like, hey, what does that do? No?
So when are you thinking of rolling this out?
We already have a pilot, a test group. Who, how many people, Jason, do we have on board?
There's 5 or 6 here.
5 or 6 for sure at UMFK that are utilizing it. I think you have some people on board at UMPI using it as well. We're trying to get the information out there. This was one point of contact. We sent out a newsletter at the beginning of this week that Heather and I put together about, it had the pedagogy behind early intervention and retention, and it had a link to this tool. This session will be added to our faculty teaching and learning center in Blackboard, so people can access it and learn a little bit further about it. At any time, if people want one-on-ones, Heather and I or Leslie can sit down, show faculty how to use it. We're hoping, I'm going to put my shameless plug out there to Joe, we're hoping that people who go into their division meetings, division chairs can help spread the word and say, look, this is best practice here at UMFK. This is a good way to help monitor and track your students and all about early intervention and student success. So
I can make an announcement at the faculty, we're having an assembly Tuesday.
Assembly. See,
Yeah.
this is perfect. These are the right people in the room to get the message out there. And so the tool is only as good as the people who choose to use it. And like I said, how you structure your course, because if you don't have deadlines, if you don't have hard deadlines in your class, you're not going to have really good information there to help monitor and track your students.
Yeah, then maybe you just might want to target, when the last time they accessed.
Which you can get through your performance dashboard.
this
You don't
one right
have
here.
to go
Yep.
right through the retention center.
What-
And if you have it toggled on, if you go to your full grade center, a lot of times you can look at it that way too. You have your last access date. So right now, we're week 3 into the semester. I would be sending Leslie, myself, and Logan early alerts because they haven't even logged into my course yet.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So you don't necessarily need to always have to pop into that retention center if if you're quickly grading or just trying to gauge. There are some other tools within Blackboard, but this really gives you an in-depth where your students are at, how they're at risk.
Does anybody want to talk about the experiences that they've had so far with Retention Center?
I've just been using it and the performance dashboard in conjunction and been I've been doing this wrong. I've been making handwritten notes on a notepad.
Okay.
And
But
then
now you can use that
Yeah,
section.
and then emailing the students, so
Yeah.
now I see,
Yeah.
I know more about.
Well, hopefully that'll save you 2 steps
Yes,
there, because you can send the
exactly.
email and the note.
Yes,
Yeah.
And
So,
it in no way is meant to be punitive. It is tracking, but we do have those instances where sometimes we have a grade that's contested. There's all your documentation of when you tried to intervene and contact the students, not the students saying, I never heard from the professor, I didn't know I wasn't doing well. It's all right there.
Oh, yeah, and you can even screenshot, the retention center,
Yeah.
it would show, yeah.
And I'd say I've even done the
All of these,
screenshot
yeah.
and sent it by email, but now I know.
Yeah.
Okay, and you guys can add me to that list too, by the way.
Okay. Jason, we have another adopter.
Great.
I mean, I've been using it, but just
Yeah.
the wrong way.
Just one thing that I've had from prior experience using something similar is to make sure just to notify faculty that they need to be somewhat generic in their comments, because anything like this is pinable. And so you want to be very careful about too much personal information And it's just a warning that I've used in the past for people to be just a little bit serious.
Yeah. Probably not good to go in and say, you slacker, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing was sometimes we had, and then they had this family problem,
Yeah.
and then the husband wasn't paying job, and some people have documented
Too much.
intimately.
Yeah.
So that's always just a good thing, the family
Yeah.
matters have impacted their ability to go after counseling. We think we have a student on track.
And anybody who would have gone through the Main Street training, I think it's been quite a few years. I think Humberto was actually here the last time we did the Main Street training. Main Street for your advisees, or for your more for your advisees, has advisor notes section. And so we had some of that etiquette of, what to put in there and whatnot. The advisor notes was nice because from one advisor to the next, if the student was struggling in particular classes or had, something that you wanted the next person who worked with the student to be aware of, that was set in place or something. We talked about that and, just the etiquette and being sensitive because it's accessible by other people.
It would be nice in Main Street if there was some little bright bulb that would come on if there were any comments in the advisor area so that you would know, because I think the inclination is never to look.
Yeah.
We have it in EAB and it actually pops up the last 5 comments. So that's something just on FYI. But I think it'd be nice to have one place where we have consolidated comments, because otherwise you're looking, are we going to EAB and looking, are we here? And I know that we can't see other people's comments in EAB, but just as a kind of a note, it would be lovely to have something where there was some continuity of comments.
And so again, that EAB that Christine's referring to. Some people know it as EAB, some people know it as SSC, but it's that Student Success Collaborative. And hopefully, it's been a while since we had that initial training. We had that initial training when it first rolled out. I think that will be something that you'll see again in the future, so we can get more people adopting that, but an excellent way to monitor your advisees.
Yeah, I'm kind of careful with Main Street just because there are so many people who have access to that.
Right.
And, we have, up to including student workers that,
Yeah.
and I don't really do much in advising note-wise there. I know that it helps a successor advisor, but again, just because there's so many hands that can access
And
that.
our student workers are now, I saw some this week who are now going through HIPAA training, prevent HIPAA training.
Right.
So they've been trained to keep that information sensitive, but I agree with you. It's an area where, everybody can access some sensitive information. So I'm probably old school and I take my plan that their plan, and I make handwritten notes on it, but then those handwritten notes don't make it to their program-specific advisor. So there is a benefit to doing some stuff in Main Street. Okay, so any other questions, concerns? Again, you can reach Heather or I if you ever have any specific questions about the retention center. We'll take today's recording and we'll put it up in that Blackboard center for the faculty. That way they can refer back to it. And just another quick plug, if you are interested in becoming part of that pilot group, reach out to myself, to Leslie, to Jason, because the more information we have about how the tool works and how it relates back to student success and retention, the more we'll be able to understand our students, their needs, and how we can help them grow and progress in the right direction.
And you do have some contact, I guess, with the Blackboard in general through the system, so that.
We have a Blackboard governance called a BB Core that Heather, myself, Leslie sit on, and so again, this tool has been available to us for over, I think, a year now. Like, I think it came when we went from our, UMaine system version of Blackboard to the cloud-based. It was one of those beautiful features, and we're so used to going to that performance dashboard and using that as instructors that, oh, what's this other thing? And we get so busy we don't always click on it or know how to interact with it. So we just wanted to make people know it's available, it's there, it's very useful, especially if you customize it, because we saw that with Heather's instance. If you leave it at default with 20%, didn't tell you that Heather might be an at-risk student.
Nobody else said anything, so of course I'm at the top of the class, even with a 69. So.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for coming, and we hope you have a great day. Reach out to us if you have any questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I've got some things about Blackboard in general, just that we, but I need to keep that list of, because
Oh,
some
you
of
want
it's
a
just,
quick
well,
run-through?
it's for,
Do you want a quick run through?
Sure, sorry.
That's okay.
yeah, it's some things I think they could make easier for people who have, you know, teach the same course semester after semester.
Right, and that's good
They-
feedback, because
Yeah.
it's been a while, but every now and then we do have somebody who comes from Blackboard and asks for faculty feedback so that they can improve the learning management system.
Mhm.
I know one thing we hear, like, when I change a date on something, can it change the date for everything
Yeah.
within that? And it can't do that, right?
Right.
You have to go into every single, you know.
Yeah.
So there are little things like that we get feedback about sometimes. It's good feedback to have, because when those Blackboard vendors come on, they are actually vendors. When they come to
Yeah.
campus, they collect that feedback, try to improve subsequent versions.
Yeah.
So, yes,
You
keep
are
that
using
running
Yes.
list. Keep that running list.
You are using the course copy function, right?
Yeah,
Okay. So
and
we're
then,
gonna
but
give
what
them-
you have to do is then, if I have the same assignments for all of my groups, I still have to go in and do individual groups, and for every week.
Mhm.
So that's what takes a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, you
it
got-
takes me a couple of weeks usually
So if he
spread
has the
out.
same assignment for 5 groups,
Yeah.
and it's gonna have the same due date,
Yeah.
he has to change the due date
Yeah,
in every single group.
Right, right. Well, I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure at least you were getting
Yeah.
the course.
the course copy was the great thing, because
Yeah.
used to you didn't have that, you had to download a zip file
Yes.
and then upload the zip file into the empty chip. The other things you learn, for instance, go in and empty everything in your menu, because it will double copy everything if you just course copy.
It can, yeah. And we're seeing now when we do course copies, we're having multiple weighted grade columns and total columns. Have you noticed
Oh,
that?
yeah. And so
And so I just go and
delete
delete
those,
them.
yeah.
If it's one that's tied to the course, it won't let you delete it.
Yeah.
So that's the rule of thumb for that.
Yeah. But things but there are some things, you know, at the beginning of summer, it's like August is here, and now I've got to go through and do all the little minor tweaks in Blackboard that just drive you nuts.
It didn't follow the parameters for, you know, minimum word value, but that's okay. It'll still pop up.
I just laugh because all of a sudden I see you take a look out of your journal with a smiley face.
Yeah. Look at my journal entry. I'm a mighty journal entry.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
Thank you so much, Aaron, for helping on the fly.
That's all right. I'll send, let me get this.